Good afternoon to all of our guests here at the North American Bear Center. It's 12:30, which usually means it's time for our Bear Broadcast Enrichment Program. While we are still broadcasting, there will be no bears down today, as they are all in their individual enclosures at the moment. So I'm not going to have a whole lot of bear stuff to talk about today, but I did want to touch on the enclosure and our plan going forward for the new fencing and stuff like that. So we're getting, as many of you have heard, we're getting new zoo fencing, zoo style fencing, and it's a long time in the wait project that we've been working towards. And initially, it was scheduled, or we were planning on doing it this fall. And as we've updated a lot of you already, it didn't work out for this fall, so we're tentatively planning and pushing for the spring. That's where we're currently planning to do that and get that new fencing for the bears. But there's also some hazards within the enclosure that need fixing. Most of them have to do with the trees. So if you take a gander around the edge of that pond and the tree line specifically, you'll notice some pretty rough-looking trees. There's a couple different things going on. We have some aspen that are very old. Aspen don't last very long. They get very rotten in the middle, or some people would call that punky when that happens. But a lot of the aspens that are still standing and are well foliaged, you can see they have full leaves and stuff. But if you look towards the top, a lot of those main stems or the main branch at the top is dead or dying. And even some of the ones that aren't dead or dying, they're just so old that once an aspen reaches that point in its life, again, it becomes rotted. Now, if they're in the enclosure, they are a hazard to our bears, to our staff, and to the enclosure itself. In addition to the large aspens that once they reach that maturity, a relatively mild windstorm can knock them over. Most of them are within damaging distance to the fence or some to the pond, or they could even obviously hurt the bears if they were to go over and the bears were near them. So we'll be removing those. There are a few along the behind-the-scenes trail that are also right next to the fence. Should one of those fall and fall the way we wouldn't like it to fall, it would hit both fences, and that could potentially be an issue as well. Now, the folks that are going to be working with us and cutting the trees, they're not too fond of being out in the enclosure with the bears, obviously. That's mostly a joke. We would never allow that to happen in the first place. There will be no bears out while the folks are in here getting to work. But we also have another tree issue, which is the balsam fir in the enclosure. Most of the pine needle bearing trees that you can see in the enclosure are balsam fir. The bigger ones we have, like the cub tree that some of you know of over to the right of the pond, is a white pine. But most of those other needle-bearing trees are balsam fir. There is a problematic parasite that affects these trees. It's called Spruce Budworm because it normally parasitizes or affects and attacks spruce. But now they've been going after balsam, and this isn't something that's new. It's been happening for a while. So that's why a lot of those balsam fir are dead. So if you look from the high falls to the left of it to where the low falls are shut off, but back in there you see a lot of dead standing trees. Those are an extreme fire hazard. Balsam fir is very easily flammable. It will light up very, very quickly and easily. And if those trees are standing, that can lead to a canopy fire, which is significantly worse than a regular ground fire or a regular forest fire. When it reaches the canopy, intensity very quickly picks up. And obviously, any kind of fire in the enclosure would not be good. And sometimes these things are out of our control. If lightning were to strike our 2.5-acre enclosure and spark one of those dead balsams, again, that could be a very big issue. So we have scheduled to remove a lot of these. And we are planning to do this on Tuesday and Wednesday, this upcoming Tuesday and Wednesday. So we will be closed to the public for those days. And you will see, if you're watching the cams on those days, you will see crews out here doing some work. They got some big trees to take down and some little trees. And most of it's going to be happening in the main enclosure, but some will be in the private enclosure. So we'll have them work on the main enclosure on Tuesday. And if all goes as planned, we will start working on those private enclosures in the behind-the-scenes area on Wednesday, which means we should be able to let bears out at that point. And we will make sure we get them in the spring so that we're ready to construct that fence in the spring, the new zoo fencing. So that's the current plan. And that's why we have to go about doing this. So for those of you who've been paying attention, watching the cams, and wondering why the bears were all put away, that's why we got to get this stuff done in the main enclosure. And we finally got it together. It's planned out. We had some folks in here today to finalize those plans, and that's what we're looking at right now. So Tuesday, Wednesday, you will be seeing people in the enclosure, people you probably don't recognize, and they will be cutting some trees for us. We will still have a some other stuff going on during those days, and the bears will be fed at their normal times. So if you want to see the bear feedings, log onto those cams and check that stuff out. But we will be having no bears out as usual, or as it's been late, until we can get those things cleaned up, and then we can go ahead and start letting bears out again, which will be great. I know some of the bears have been really wanting to check out some den sites and locations in the main enclosure, and again, we really needed them in to do that work in the spring. But I think now the plan is, and I don't think I know, the plan is to get those bears in the spring and before the construction workers get here, and that way they can proceed with the fence as well. As just a little bear update for you, it's getting late in the year. This is the time of the year where the bears start to prepare, if not already enter their dens for hibernation. So our bears here at the Bear Center, they're pretty sluggish and slow moving. So that's what you're going to be noticing. There's not a lot of physical activity from the bears this time of year, and that's typical. In fact, the wild population of bears in this area, a lot of them are probably already bed down for the year. Typically, pregnant females will go down first because they do give birth in those winter dens. And Dr. Rogers says that usually happens around mid to late September when they start to go down, followed by the females that aren't going to give birth that year. So they already have given birth the year before. So they have yearlings, or well, they're cubs right now, but they'll enter the den, and come January, they'll be a year old. So we'd call them yearlings. Those females will follow suit, usually slightly after those pregnant females. And then a lot of the males will start to follow after that. So we can still see bears out in the wild right now. It's just you're not seeing them like you may have been earlier in the year. This is the time of the year, again, to get slow moving. They're getting real close to that fall transition time. Hyperphagia has probably ended for most of the wild bears because there is no food to eat. However, you will still hear about bears visiting trash cans and bird feeders and things like that at this time of the year. And we have heard of things like that going around in the greater Ely area. In fact, I was at a friend's house just the other day. We were playing board games late into the night. It was about 10:30, 11:30, and we heard the trash can noise, and he had set a piece of metal with a metal dog dish on top of the trash can as an alarm system, so should the bear mess with it, it'll at least make a loud noise, which also tends to scare bears, but also you can hear it, so it alerted us. And we went outside to see a bear trying to get the trash can. It was really easily scared off and didn't actually come back, so that was pretty good. Typical. Holly is usually follows suit closely behind him, and then the last two are Tasha and Ted. Tasha, because she's from a southern climate, her schedule is a little bit different, and she's a bit confused being this far north. But Ted, the reason he stays up so late is just because he's Ted. He is a captive-born and captive-raised animal, where our other bears were wild at one point. So Ted, again, he's just Ted. So he doesn't quite understand how that works. We have the other bears, they'll start rejecting parts of their meals, so then we'll half their meals, only give them half as much, and they'll start rejecting that, so then we'll give them half as much as half, and so we scale it back until they stop eating altogether. Ted kind of have to do the inverse of that. We have to give Ted less and less food so he knows it's time for hibernation. So he's just a little bit different than your average bear in that regard. Well, those were the updates I wanted to give today. Again, hopefully we'll be having bears out here relatively soon, looking at that Tuesday, Wednesday time period, and we will update you as we know more. And we'll also do another special update on Monday. We'll do a regular broadcast right now, but it's going to be taking place at 11:30, and we'll also do one on our social media, Facebook as well. So we'll have a little bit of updates for people on those days as well. Well, thanks everyone who tuned in for the broadcast today. Again, sorry about no bears, but hopefully we'll be having those in the future. And besides any special broadcasts, this will be the last live broadcast program of the year. So when I sign off today, you will only be hearing from us on those special broadcasts. We'll be sure to update everybody through social media and stuff like that on when those broadcasts will be taking place, with the website and the Facebook and all the social media that needs to be updated for that. But this will be the last live broadcast of the year. Pretty typical for this time of year again of us, because again the bears just slowing down. It's time. Winter is impending, and it's probably going to come quick this year if the bears are any indicator. Sharon, our head bear keeper, has mentioned a couple times that they seem a bit ahead of schedule, which means winter's probably coming. Sometimes animals are much better weather predictors than humans are, even with our fancy technology and whatnot. A lot of times they're much more in tune to seasonal changes and what the timing of those changes will be. So we're kind of expecting an early winter, and so again, this will be the last broadcast. So as for the final broadcast, thank you everyone for coming out today at the Bear Center. We appreciate you being here and being willing to spend some time and money with us to learn about bears. Thank you to all of those of you tuning in online, especially you regulars. You've been supporting us from far and away, and a lot of you very diligently. You tune in every single day for the broadcast. We appreciate you. So happy that you're finding interest in these broadcasts and log it on to check out what we have going on. Thank you so much for that support from far and away. And lastly, I'd really just like to thank those camera operators and what we call the mods, the mod group. That's our moderators for the online cameras and stuff. Thanks so much for helping out with these programs all year long. You guys have been a terrific help to us. They drive the camera while we talk and stuff like that. They constantly let us know what the bears are doing, where they're at, and it's kind of like our eye in the sky. Sometimes you'd be surprised how easy it is for those bears to hide in this 2.5 acre enclosure and tough for the staff to find. So it's always nice to have that extra pair of eyes, and we can just quickly message them and say, hey, we're looking for this bear. We want to get them in so we can let other bears out. And they're right on the spot letting us know what's going on with that. So thank you, moderators, for all your help this year. We appreciate it. With that, I'm going to sign off. Again, my name is Spencer, the in-house biologist here at the center. I'm getting a call from Scott, so bear with me here. Let me just see if this has to pertain to the current broadcast before I sign off. Hello? I'm still on, so I just told him to pause. I said, Scott's calling me. It might pertain to the broadcast. Let me just answer it quick. Okay, all right. I'm going to sign off quick. All right, sounds good. Alrighty, well, Scott thought I had finished, so he was just checking in on a couple of things. So I'm going to continue to sign off. So thanks, everybody. Thanks all of our supporters, all of our volunteers. We had a terrific year this year. We're really excited and everything about that. So this is the last broadcast. My name is Spencer. I'm the in-house biologist here at the center. Thanks for tuning in with us at our 12:30 broadcast program. I'm already getting excited for next year for these programs, but you'll have to wait until then for those daily broadcasts. We'll start as we usually do, usually April and May with these, but thanks again, everybody, for all the support, all the volunteering, all the help. We really, truly appreciate it. And that does it for this year's last live Bear Broadcast Enrichment Program. We hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day.